Okay, so I want you to try something. Visualize the most successful person you know.
Okay.
And don't think about, their bank account or Instagram.
Mm.
Just think about their output, what they actually managed to get done. You got them.
Yep, I've got mine in my head.
Now, here's the question. Are they running around, hair on fire, answering emails at 11 o'clock at night, bragging about how they haven't seen the sun in days?
No.
Or do they seem almost annoyingly calm?
It's usually the calm one, isn't it? It's that person who gets twice as much done, but somehow always has time for coffee.
Exactly. And that right there is the paradox we're really going to unpack today. We have a huge stack of research here. I mean, everything from neurobiology studies from the NIH to frameworks from Tim Ferriss and Simon Sinek,
And they all point to the same thing.
that we have the whole productivity equation completely backward. We think success is about grinding harder. But all the data, it's about something they're calling strategic laziness.
Strategic laziness. I know, it sounds like a total contradiction, doesn't it? Like jumbo shrimp or something.
Right. Deafening silence.
Exactly. But when you get into the source material, it's not about doing nothing. It's more about a ruthless efficiency. It's about doing less of the wrong things so you can go all in on the right things.
And the way you find those right things seems to be the core theme of this whole deep dive. If we had to put a bumper sticker on this, it'd be that quote from the Tim Ferriss material.
Oh, I know the one. The quality of your questions determines the quality of your life.
That's the one.
Right. And the argument is that most of us are just running on autopilot. We accept the default settings for our jobs, our lives, our schedules. We're so busy answering emails.
That we never stop to ask why we're getting so many in the first place.
Precisely.
So our mission today is to build a toolkit. We are going to walk through a set of what he calls impossible questions that are designed to break that autopilot. We'll look at the biology of why writing this stuff down actually changes your brain.
And we're going to explore how to use these questions to fix not just our work, but, our mental health and our relationships, too.
And we should probably warn you, some of these questions they're a little uncomfortable.
They are. They require you to admit that a lot of your hard work might actually just be wasted energy.
Oof. Okay, let's start right there with the wasted energy. The Ferriss material brings up this idea of stress testing your reality.
Yeah, the core premise is that we treat the rules of our lives like, I have to work 9 to 5, or I must answer every call, as if they're laws of physics, but they're not.
They're not. So what are they?
They're just social agreements. And agreements can be renegotiated, so he suggests we kind of poke at them with what he calls disruptive inquiry. The classic example he gives is asking, what if I did the opposite for 48 hours?
Okay, break that down for me. Because if I'm, say, a surgeon, I probably shouldn't do the opposite of surgery.
Fair point. Please don't do that. No. This applies more to, competitive or creative fields. The example in the text is a salesperson.
Okay.
So if the entire industry cold calls leads between 9 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon, you're competing with everyone else in the world at that exact time.
And all the gatekeepers are on high alert. The assistants, the receptionists.
Right. They're trained to block you between 9 and 5. So the opposite approach is you call it 8 a.m. or you call it 6:30 p.m.
When the gatekeeper's gone home, but the decision maker, the boss, is probably still at their desk finishing up.
Precisely. You're not being a better salesperson. You're just changing the physics of the game. You're seeing where the herd is going, and you're deliberately stepping into the empty lane.
I really like that. It's not about working harder to beat the herd. It's about just leaving the herd entirely. Okay, there's another question from that list that I think is even more powerful for our daily grind. I actually wrote this one down.
Let me guess. What would this look like if it were easy?
That's the one.
It's a fan favorite for a reason. Because it exposes this really nasty cognitive distortion we all have. We equate difficulty with value. We think if a project isn't just grueling and painful, it must not be important.
I feel personally attacked right now. I 100% have that mindset. If I'm not stressed, I feel like I must be slacking off.
That's the trap. When you ask, what would this look like if it were easy, you force your brain to strip away all the complexity you added just out of habit. Like if you have to record a show like this.
Okay.
The hard version involves worrying about the perfect script, the perfect camera angle, 10 hours of research.
And the easy version.
You hit record and you talk. You identify the non-negotiable requirements, good audio, good content, and you just delete the rest. It forces you to ask, am I making this hard because it needs to be, or am I making it hard so I can feel productive?
That distinction is so critical.
Yeah.
And it leads perfectly into that animal analogy from the source material, the antelope versus field mice.
Yeah.
This is about ROI, right?
It is. It's a great way to explain the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
So the analogy goes like this. A lion can spend its whole day hunting field mice, and it's pretty good at it. It'll catch a bunch of them. But a mouse has almost no calories. The energy the lion burns chasing it, pouncing, digesting, it's often more than the energy it gets back. So the lion can be busy all day catching dozens of mice and literally starve to death.
That is a terrifying image for a workaholic. You can be successfully checking off tasks all day long, clearing your inbox, answering Slack, and still be starving in terms of actual progress.
Correct. The alternative is hunting the antelope. It's hard. It takes patience, strategy, risk. You might fail. But one antelope can feed the lion for days.
So the question we have to keep asking ourselves is, am I hunting antelope or am I hunting field mice?
And you have to be really honest with yourself. The field mice are the emails, the Slack notifications, tweaking the formatting on a slide deck. They give you that little dopamine hit of done,
Yeah.
but they don't actually move the big projects forward.
The antelope is that one big scary project you've been putting off because it requires actual deep thought.
Exactly. It's easier to catch 10 mice than one antelope, so we just default to the mice to feel busy.
To force us to find our antelope, Ferris suggests this thought experiment that, frankly, makes me a little anxious. He asks, if I could only work 2 hours per week on my business, what would I do?
It's extreme, I know, but it just cuts through all the noise. If you literally had 120 minutes a week, you wouldn't spend a single second of it on Twitter. You wouldn't check your email. You wouldn't do a sync meeting.
You'd be forced to focus only on the highest value thing you could possibly do.
It strips away the illusion of productivity. It separates motion from action. Motion feels like work, but action gets a result.
Okay, so we've got the what to ask. But the sources, especially the NIH study, make a really big deal about how we ask them. And apparently, just thinking about these questions isn't enough. You have to physically write them down.
This is where we get into the neuroscience of it. The study looked at what they call reflective questioning activities, or RQAs, and they found the actual physical act of writing engages the brain completely differently than just thinking does.
The stat that just jumped out at me was the one about cortisol.
It's incredible, isn't it? The research shows that daily expressive writing can lower cortisol, your main stress hormone, by up to 23%.
That's like a pharmacological effect, just from a pen and paper.
It is.
Why does that happen? Because usually if I'm writing about my problems, it feels like I'm just marinating in them.
Well, it's about the prefrontal cortex versus the amygdala. Your amygdala is your fight or flight center. It's where emotional chaos lives. When you're just ruminating on a problem, it's bouncing around in there like a pinball.
Okay.
But when you write it down, you are forcing that information to be processed by your prefrontal cortex, the logic center.
So you're literally moving the thought from the emotional brain to the logical brain.
Yes, you're externalizing it. When the problem is in your head, the problem is you. I am a failure. When it's on paper, it's an object. This project failed. And you can look at it objectively and actually solve it.
Yeah, and I know people listening are thinking this. Who has time to journal every day?
That's the good news. The study looked at that. And it's not about intensity. It's about consistency, a kind of compound interest effect. 10 to 15 minutes a day is way more effective than a 3-hour journaling session once a month.
And it has to be structured, right?
Right.
It can't just be, Dear Diary, today was terrible.
Exactly. Unstructured venting can actually make you angrier. The effective way is with structured questions like, what is the most troubling thought I have? And then right after, what is the evidence for this thought? And what is the evidence against it?
That sounds a lot like cognitive behavioral therapy.
It's essentially self-administered CBT. It makes you fact-check your own anxiety.
Okay, so we're writing things down. We're hunting antelopes. Let's get back to that hook. Strategic laziness. We have a source here from Simon Sinek's team that argues laziness is like a biological imperative.
It is. Humans evolved to conserve energy. That's just biology. A caveman who ran around burning calories for fun died. But in the modern workplace, we fight that biology constantly. We push way past the point of diminishing returns. The source mentions a big Stanford University study.
The productivity cliff. I think I've fallen off that cliff a few times. What do the numbers say?
The data is pretty stark. Your productivity per hour drops sharply after you hit 50 hours of work in a week. And once you get to 55 hours, it just flatlines.
So the difference in actual output between someone working 55 hours and someone working 80 hours is?
Statistically zero. In fact, it might even be negative because the 80-hour person is exhausted. They're making mistakes that take other people time to fix. They bring down morale. You're getting so little for that extra time, you might as well be sleeping.
So the whole grind mindset, the I worked an 80-hour week badge of honor,
Yeah.
it's scientifically inefficient.
It's mathematically illiterate. Strategic laziness is about stopping before you hit the cliff. It's recognizing that rest isn't the opposite of work. Rest is a maintenance requirement for the machine that does the work.
One of the tips they gave for this is the no policy. And I love how the Architecture of Achievement source puts it. They say, no is a time credit, yes is a time jet.
I think this is the single most powerful idea for anyone who feels overwhelmed. Every time you say yes to something, yes, I'll grab coffee, yes, I'll join that committee, you are creating a debt that you have to pay off later with your future time.
And we always assume that future us is going to be this superhero with infinite time. We're like, oh, next Tuesday, I'll be totally free.
Exactly. But when the bill comes due, you're just as busy and now you're overdrawn. But when you say no, you're banking that time. You keep the credit. And the most successful people, they say no to almost everything so they can say hell yes to the very few things that actually matter, the antelopes.
It reminds me of the minimum viable product idea, but for your daily tasks.
Yes. Perfectionism is the enemy here. We spend so much time polishing things that don't need polishing. Asking what's the MVP here isn't about doing bad work. It's about asking what's the least I can do to satisfy the core requirement so I can move on to something more valuable.
So if an internal email just needs to get a message across in 3 sentences, don't spend 20 minutes formatting it with bold text and bullet points.
Exactly. If you can get 95% of the result with 50% of the effort, you take that win and move on. Perfectionism is just procrastination in a fancy suit.
I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Okay, we've talked about managing ourselves, but we don't work in a vacuum. Let's pivot to talking to other people. We have a really important source here on mental health, specifically men's mental health, and this framework called ALSE.
This is so crucial. The stats in the source material are really sobering. In the UK, 75% of suicides are men, and nearly half of men said they'd be embarrassed to tell their boss about a mental health issue.
That is just heartbreaking. It shows that even with all the talk about wellness at work, there's still this massive stigma.
And a massive lack of tools. We just don't know how to ask. We're worried if we say, are you okay? We're going to open a can of worms we can't handle. Or just make things awkward.
So let's walk through ALEs. It's designed to make that conversation easier. ALEC.
It starts with A for ask. And the key here is to be specific. It's not just a passing, how are you? It's, hey, I noticed you've been pretty quiet in meetings lately, or you seem a bit off your game. Is everything all right? You name the change you've seen.
Then L for, listen, and this is the hardest part for high achievers, isn't it? We're fixers. Someone tells us a problem, we want to jump in with a solution. Oh, you're stressed. You should try meditation.
100%. But here, L is for listen, not lecture. The source says you have to just suppress that urge to solve. Don't interrupt. Don't offer advice yet. Just let them talk. Sometimes people just need to say it out loud.
Okay. Then E for encourage action.
And this is gentle. It's not, you need to call a therapist right now. It's more like, hey, let's go for a walk and get some air. Or have you ever thought about talking to someone about this? It's a nudge, not a shove.
And finally, C for check-in.
The step everyone forgets. You have the big conversation and then nothing. Sending a text a couple days later, hey, just thinking of you, shows that the first conversation wasn't just a performance. It shows you actually care.
This idea of safety, it extends to our teams at work, too. We've got some great questions here about psychological safety.
Psychological safety is just the belief that you won't get punished for making a mistake. And it's the single biggest predictor of high-performing teams. You build it by asking the right questions. One of my favorites is, when errors happen here, how do we typically respond?
That is a brave question for a manager to ask their team.
It is, because the honest answer might be, we yell, or we find someone to blame. But if you can get to a place where the answer is we fix it, then you unlock a learn fast, fix fast culture. You separate accountability, which is fixing the problem, from blame, which is shaming the person.
I also love that strengths marketplace exercise they mentioned.
Oh, it's such a quick win. Everyone on the team just lists 2 of their strengths and 1 area where they want to stretch and improve. It sounds so simple, but it aligns the team instantly. Now you know that Sarah wants to get better at public speaking, so you ask her to present the quarterly results.
You're treating people like assets to be developed, not just cost.